Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. This happened when I was 14, back in 2011. It was during Christmas break and I was staying over at my friend Lily's house for the weekend. She lived in this old place just outside a small town in Maine called Barrow Hill. It was the kind of house that creaked when no one was moving, and always felt colder than it should have been, even with the heat on. There were 6 of us that night. Me, Lily, her younger brother Ben, and 3 of our friends from school, Mia, Sophie, and Carter. Lily's house was the go-to spot because it was big, her parents were cool, and her backyard was huge. Plus, it sat right up against a thick stretch of woods that everyone said was haunted, though nobody really believed that. We spent most of the evening in the living room, watching dumb horror movies and playing board games. At some point, Carter dared us to play hide-and-seek outside, at night in the cold. It was already close to 11 p.m., and none of us had really planned on going outdoors. But Carter wouldn't drop it, and honestly, we were all bored enough to go along. Lily said we could use the backyard, but she made one thing very clear: don't go past the fence. Don't go into the woods, seriously, we all agreed. The fence ran along the whole back of the yard and separated it from the trees. It wasn't that high, just a wooden picket fence, but it marked the boundary between the house and the forest. The unspoken rule had always been, don't mess with the woods. The game started simple enough. I was chosen to be the seeker first. I stood in the kitchen with the lights off, counting loudly to 60 while everyone else ran to hide. Once I hit 60, I walked through the house first. Found Sophie behind the shower curtain, Mia curled up under the dining table, and Ben, of all places, hiding inside the dryer with a blanket over him. That left Lily and Carter. I figured they'd gone outside, so I grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the backyard. It was pitch black except for a flickering light above the porch that turned off every minute unless someone walked near it. The ground crunched under my boots from the frost, and my breath came out in white puffs. Lily's backyard was kind of a mess. There was a rusted-out swing set, an old garden shed tucked in the corner near the fence, a cracked sandbox, and a plastic playhouse that was tilted like something had shoved it. I scanned around with the flashlight, moving slow. My beam passed over the playhouse, the broken sandbox, and then the shed, and that's when I saw something or someone crouched down behind the shed. They weren't moving, just squatting there like they were waiting to be found. I figured it was Carter being dramatic, so I didn't say anything. I decided to give it a minute, let the others settle down. I turned and walked back inside. About 10 minutes later, everyone had gathered in the living room, warming up under blankets. Everyone was there, except Carter. I was just about to say I knew where he was hiding when Lily casually mentioned that Carter had left with her dad to pick up pizza about 20 minutes earlier. I froze. Wait, what? She looked at me like I was dumb. Yeah, he left before we started the game. I slowly turned my head to the others. Then who was hiding behind the shed? No one answered. Mia raised her eyebrows. I stayed inside the whole time. Ben looked freaked out. Me too. I've been in here. Sophie said she had hidden in the hallway and never even went near the yard. I didn't say anything else after that. I just sat down on the carpet, trying to keep my hands from shaking. I kept glancing toward the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. The motion light was off again, and all I could see out there was darkness. They started a second round of the game, but I sat that one out. I stood near the window watching. Eventually, everyone came back in and we laid out sleeping bags in a row in front of the TV. Lily put on another movie, but I wasn't paying attention. I couldn't stop thinking about the figure I'd seen. The way it crouched, too still, like it was waiting for something that wasn't a game. Around midnight, I got up to use the bathroom. I didn't want to wake anyone, so I didn't turn on the lights. The glow from the kitchen nightlight was enough to see. As I walked past the sliding door again, I stopped. The curtain had been left open just a little. I peeked through. That's when I noticed the footprints, not just one set, multiple, crisscrossing the porch, going in different directions. Some led to the railing, others disappeared into the yard. My heart dropped. I remembered exactly where I had stepped earlier, and these were not mine. They were spaced wider, heavier. A few of them had melted the frost deeper into the wood, like someone had stood in place for a long time. I checked the lock on the door. Still sealed tight. I leaned closer, trying to see into the yard. The shed was just a dark shape now. I couldn't make anything out, but I didn't like the way the shadows felt out there, like they were watching. I stood there for what felt like forever, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. I went back to the living room, crawled into my sleeping bag, and pulled the blanket over my face. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every tiny noise, the floor creaking, someone shifting in their sleep, made me freeze up. I just laid there, eyes wide, listening. Eventually, the movie stopped playing and the room went dead quiet. The only light came from the hallway. I kept trying to tell myself I imagined the footprints, that I didn't really see someone crouched by the shed, that maybe it was a shadow or maybe I had missed Carter sneaking back in. But the door never opened. I would have heard it. And the footprints, they were real. I saw them around 5 in the morning. I heard it. Not inside the house, outside. A soft dragging noise like something being pulled across the grass. Faint, but there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stared up at the ceiling, completely still. The noise stopped. Then nothing. When the first light of morning crept into the sky, I finally got up. Everyone else was still asleep except for Lily, who was half awake, rubbing her eyes. I told her I thought I left something outside and walked to the sliding door. I pulled the curtain all the way open. The yard looked normal at first glance, but the frost was melted in weird spots, like places where someone had stood or walked slowly. There were more footprints now, fresher ones. They started at the porch and led straight to the fence. Then they stopped. No marks on the other side, just ended. I grabbed Lily's coat and stepped outside. The air was freezing and I immediately regretted not wearing shoes. I followed the footprints to the fence, then turned toward the shed. The door was shut. I stood there staring. Then I reached out and pulled it open slowly. Nothing, just old tools and junk. But it smelled wrong. Damp and moldy, like wet earth and something else, something metallic. I didn't stick around. I went back inside. Lily was in the kitchen now, making toast. She asked if I found what I was looking for. I lied and said yeah. I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't tell anyone. Later that morning, Carter came back with Lily's dad, holding 2 pizza boxes and a big bag of chips. He asked what he missed. Lily told him we played hide and seek, and he laughed and said, "Darn, I love that game." I didn't say anything. I just watched him, thinking back to that shape behind the shed, because whatever or whoever was out there that night, they weren't playing, and they weren't one of us. Okay, so this happened years ago, way back in the fall of 1998 when I was 10. My name's Lucas, and I was in 5th grade at the time. Our class went on this overnight school trip to a place called Misty Pines Nature Camp. It was out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere deep in rural Vermont. Not a lot of cell phones or GPS back then, so we all felt like we were really out in the woods. The place itself was weird. Not in a this is fun and different kind of way. More like, this place has secrets. The main building was old and creaky, like it hadn't been updated since the 1950s. It had 2 floors. The bottom was classrooms and lounges, and the top had the dorm rooms. Outside there were trails, woods, and a big open field for games. But on the inside, everything felt stuck in time. The windows barely opened. The lights flickered. And the heating system made this awful clicking and popping noise like something was stuck in the pipes. Our teacher, Ms. Baird, said we'd only be there 2 nights. We'd do some team-building stuff, learn about animals, roast marshmallows, that kind of thing. Sounded okay, but things got strange the very first night. It started raining right after we arrived. And I'm not talking about a light drizzle, it poured. The sky stayed a flat gray all day. Thunder shook the windows every so often, and by dinner it had gotten cold. They told us after we ate that we needed to stay in our dorms or the main lounge area because the storm was supposed to get worse. At around 8 p.m., the power went out. Boom. Whole place went dark except for the emergency lights. One of the camp counselors, a guy named Kevin, said it was probably the storm knocking something out and they'd try to get the backup generator going. They handed out flashlights and told us to stay calm and stay put. So there we were, about 20 kids huddled in sleeping bags in the big lounge area, bored out of our minds. Someone, I think it was my friend Jonah, suggested we play flashlight hide and seek. The adults were all busy in the basement trying to fix the power, so no one was around to say no. We all agreed on the rules. Stay on the main floor. Don't go outside and don't go into any of the staff-only zones. Simple enough. When it was my turn to hide, I took it seriously. I wanted to win. So I ran down one of the side hallways, away from the noise, and spotted this half-open door near the end. It looked like a cleaning closet or maybe a supply room. I peeked inside. It was small and dark, with a mop bucket, some plastic folding chairs, and shelves that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. Perfect. I slipped in and gently pulled the door mostly shut, just enough to leave a thin crack so I could peek out if I needed to. Then I crouched down between the wall and some folded chairs, holding my breath. At first I could hear people laughing and shouting from the other end of the hallway. Footsteps padded around. Flashlights flicked across the walls. But eventually everything got quiet. I waited a bit longer and figured it was probably safe to come out. I reached for the door. It didn't move. I frowned and pulled again, harder. Still stuck. I tried pushing, then yanking with both hands, bracing my foot against a shelf. Nothing. It was like the door had fused into the frame. I felt my chest tighten. Maybe it had locked behind me somehow? No, there was no lock on the inside. Just a handle. I used my flashlight to look around. The space was barely 4 feet deep, maybe 3 feet wide. Just enough room for cleaning supplies and someone my size to sit down uncomfortably. There were no vents, no back exit, just that one stubborn door. I banged on it softly at first. "Hey!" I called. No answer. I hit it harder. "Guys, Jonah? Anybody?" Nothing. I started to feel hot, like the air was getting thick and heavy. My flashlight began to flicker. I smacked it and it steadied, but the beam felt weaker now, like it didn't want to shine. I shouted louder, pounded on the door, even kicked it. Still nothing. It was too quiet out there. Too still. I tried listening through the crack. No footsteps, no voices. No wind or rain, just silence. And then, finally, I heard something. A soft dragging sound, like something being pulled slowly across the floor just outside. I held my breath. Then a whisper. Not a voice I recognized. Not even words I recognized. It was low and breathy, like someone exhaling just inches from the door. My skin went cold. I backed into the corner and turned off my flashlight. More dragging sounds. A soft knock, then nothing. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 20. My sense of time just stopped. Eventually I heard a voice, an actual voice, call my name. It was Ms. Baird. The door creaked open like it was never stuck at all. She looked at me, confused. "What are you doing in there, Lucas?" I stepped out, shaky and pale. The door wouldn't open, I whispered. She frowned. It wasn't locked. I didn't argue. I just followed her back down the hallway. The lounge was lit with flashlights and lanterns. Everyone was talking quietly, telling stories, acting like nothing weird had happened. No one even noticed. I'd been missing. I curled up on my sleeping bag and didn't say a word for the rest of the night, but I couldn't stop thinking about that door, the way it refused to move, the way the air had felt inside, the whisper that didn't sound human. The next morning, after breakfast and once the power was back on, I asked Jonah and another classmate, Avery, to come with me. I had to show them the closet. I needed proof that I hadn't just dreamed the whole thing. We went back to the hallway, past the water fountain with the cracked tile, past the faded safety poster about bears. Everything was exactly how I remembered it, except the closet was gone. Well, not gone exactly. It was there, but now it was boarded up. 2 thick wooden planks were nailed across the door, one up high, one near the bottom. The nails were old and rusty. Dust had settled along the frame. Cobwebs clung to the corners. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Avery knocked on the wood. It didn't budge. Jonah just stared. "You sure this is the one?" "Positive," I said. My voice was shaking. We double-checked the hallway. Everything matched. Same poster, Same water fountain, same light bulb flickering overhead. Later that day, I worked up the nerve to ask one of the counselors, a woman named Donna, about the closet. She barely glanced at it. That room's been sealed off for a long time, she said. Floorboards are rotten. Someone almost fell through years ago. I opened my mouth to say something, then closed it. What was I going to tell her? That I spent part of the night in a sealed-off room that no longer exists? I just nodded and walked away. But I remember it all, the way the air tasted stale, the way the door felt like it was pushing back, the whisper that didn't belong to anyone I knew. I know what happened. I know where I was, and I know it wasn't just in my head. So this happened last summer, around early July 2022. I was 16, and I'd gone on a little weekend getaway with my cousin Joey and our two friends, Kayla and Mason. Just the four of us trying to do something fun before summer slipped away. We weren't at a fancy cabin or a campground or anything like that. We were just crashing at Joey's grandparents' old place out near Cinder Lake, a dried-up little town in northern Minnesota. His grandparents had passed a few years back, and the house had been sitting empty ever since, just slowly falling apart. I'm talking peeling paint, dead vines crawling up the porch, and windows so dirty you couldn't see through them. No electricity, no Wi-Fi, no plumbing that actually worked, but we thought that made it kind of perfect. No rules, no parents, no one to bug us. We got there late Friday afternoon and spent most of the evening setting up our sleeping bags in the living room and looking through the stuff still left in the house. Old magazines from the 90s, dusty board games, a half-broken cuckoo clock, just weird old junk. The place smelled like stale wood and something faintly sour, like mold that hadn't been cleaned in years. Still, we were having a good time. After it got dark, Mason suggested we play hide and seek. It sounds childish, I know, but something about that creaky, shadowy house made the idea feel kind of exciting. Creepy, but fun. We set the rules. The seeker had to count to 60 in the front hallway, and everyone else had one floor to hide on. No going outside and no hiding in the basement. Kayla lost the coin toss and started counting while the rest of us scattered. I ended up in the kitchen. The place was almost bare. No fridge, no stove, just a dusty old sink and a few warped cabinets that looked like they'd fall off if you touched them. In the corner, though, I noticed a small pantry with a slatted wooden door, the kind that folds when you pull it. It was barely wide enough to crouch in, but I figured that made it a good hiding spot. I stepped inside, pulled the door shut behind me, and turned off my flashlight. The air in there was thick and warm, like the kind you breathe in an attic during summer. Through the slats in the door, I could just make out faint lines of moonlight coming through a nearby window. I crouched down behind a plastic bin and tried to stay quiet. Every little creak and groan from the old house sounded so much louder in the dark. I heard footsteps above me. Mason and Joey must have both gone upstairs. Then it went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, like unnaturally quiet. No floorboards, no voices. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing through the trees. I counted my breaths just to have something to focus on. Then Kayla called out, "Time's up." I found Mason. I stayed put a little longer just to make it harder for her. Maybe another minute or two. Then I opened the pantry door and stretched my legs, brushing dust off my pants as I walked toward the front hallway. That's when things started to get weird. Everyone was gathered near the bottom of the staircase, goofing around and laughing about how hard it was to see anything upstairs. Joey turned to me and asked, "Where were you hiding?" I told him, "The pantry and the kitchen." Kayla suddenly stopped smiling. "Wait," she said slowly. "No, I already found you." I laughed, thinking she was just messing with me, but she wasn't joking. "I found you upstairs," she said. "In the big bedroom. You were just standing in the closet staring at me." My stomach sank. "I even said your name," she went on. "You didn't say anything. You just stood there and stared like, I don't know, like you didn't even recognize me." I looked at Joey and Mason, hoping they'd laugh and tell me it was a prank, but they just looked confused too. I tried to shake it off. Maybe Kayla was just playing a weird joke. Or maybe she saw a pile of clothes and thought it was me. But deep down, I felt this strange chill settle into my chest. Something about the way she said it, how serious she looked. Like she wasn't telling a scary story, she was remembering something. That night, none of us talked much. We laid out our sleeping bags in the living room and pretended everything was normal, but I could tell no one was really sleeping. I certainly wasn't. Around 2 or 3 in the morning I had to pee. Of course, the bathroom was upstairs, right past the bedroom Kayla was talking about. I tried to ignore the feeling crawling up my spine as I walked down the dark hallway. I kept the flashlight on the floor, not wanting to wake the others, but every creak in the floor made me wince. When I reached the stairs, I saw something that made me stop cold. The bedroom door, the one across from the bathroom, was open. Just slightly. Just wide enough for someone to be standing behind it watching. I told myself to ignore it. Just go to the bathroom, do your thing, and come back down. But something inside me, curiosity, maybe fear, I don't know, made me push the door open a little more. The room smelled stale and cold, like old blankets and rotting wood. The only furniture left was a broken bed frame and a cracked dresser missing 2 drawers. And then I saw it. The closet was open, and someone was standing inside. At first, I thought it was a mirror. The figure was wearing the same hoodie and jeans I had on, the same shoes, same messy hair, but there was no glass. Just space, just that thing standing against the back wall. It was me, except it wasn't. Its head was tilted slightly down, but its eyes were looking straight at me. No blinking, no reaction. Just this blank stare that felt wrong, like its face didn't know how to be human. I took a step closer and the thing in the closet lifted its chin. Our eyes met. I whispered my name. It didn't move. Didn't speak. That's when I noticed its clothes were clean. No dust, no smudges, but mine were still dirty from hiding in the pantry. Whatever that thing was, it hadn't crawled through dust. It hadn't moved at all. It had just been waiting. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and ran back downstairs so fast I almost tripped on the rug. I didn't even go to the bathroom. I just curled up in my sleeping bag and stared at the ceiling until the sky started to turn blue. None of us said much the next morning. We packed up, locked the place behind us, and drove off like we were trying to outrun something, and maybe we were. But the thing is, I can't stop thinking about that closet, and that version of me still standing inside it, waiting.